Today is Sunday, May 31st, 2015. This is the second day of our weekend session at Endless Path Zendo, and we'll resume where we left off with the wonderful, strange, humorous, profound Vimalakirti Sutra. Again, we'll be working with the Burton-Watson translation from Kumarajiva's Chinese of the 5th or 6th century AD. The sutra itself was composed more like 100 AD. The very strangeness of it is revelatory. It's so extremely Zen-like, and for anyone, again, who thinks that Zen is somehow a later addition to Buddhist teaching, take a look at the sutra and think again. So, we'll see if we can pick up essentially where we left off. We may backtrack just a little bit to have a context. So, we're in the section, the chapter, I think it is 12, Seeing Akshobya Buddha. At that time, Shariputra asked Vimalakirti, "Where did you die before you were reborn here?" Vimalakirti, who always, he's such a sharp blade, and you'll see the Buddha kind of basically says, tells him to calm down a little bit. He always presents the absolute perspective. He won't get caught in any less kind of lesser view. So Shariputra asks, "Where did you die before you were reborn here?" Vimalakirti said, "In the Dharma that you learned, is there any such thing as dying or being born?" Shariputra replied, "No, there's no dying or being born." Then Vimalakirti goes on, "If all things are without the nature of dying or being born, then why do you ask where I died before I was reborn here? What is your opinion? Do phantom men and women conjured up by a magician know anything of dying or being born? No, there's no dying or being born for them. And have you not heard the Buddha say that all things are in the nature of conjured beings? This sense of myself, right here. What is that? Is that any different from a phantom being created by a great magician? It seems to be in charge of everything. It seems to wish to be in charge of everything, but is it? I don't even know how I taste this drink. It's good. Yes, replied Shariputra, agreeing with Vimalakirti, that all things are in the nature of conjured beings. If all things are in the nature of conjured beings, continues Vimalakirti, then why do you ask where I died before I was reborn here? When were you born? Where were you born? We actually explore this in our koan practice. Shariputra, dying is in its nature simply the destruction of something that is empty and fraudulent. And being born is in its nature the continuation of something that is empty and fraudulent. But the Bodhisattva, though he dies, does not wipe out his good roots. And though he is born, he does not prolong those things that are self-centered. The term here is evil. That's used in the translation. But at that time, the Buddha, he can't bear to see Shariputra so confused. The Buddha steps in and says to Shariputra, "There is a country called Wonderful Joy." Wonderful Joy. Isn't that a great name for a country? And of course, in the Vimalakirti Sutra, country could mean planet, could mean world, could mean galaxy. It's very hard to pin down what's really being spoken about. At that time, the Buddha said to Shariputra, "There is a country called Wonderful Joy, with a Buddha named Immovable." That's a translation of Akshobya, immovable. Vimalakirti here died in that world or country and was reborn in this one. So Vimalakirti has really come from the world, wonderful joy, from the realm of the Buddha, immovable. Remember, the Sutra talks about how in this world the Buddha teaches with words, with similes. Vimalakirti died from the world of wonderful joy. Where might that world be, do you think? And was reborn in this one, this world of change and difficulty. And the Buddha of the realm, wonderful joy, is the Buddha immovable. Where do you think you might find that world and that Buddha? Shariputra said, I have never heard of such a thing, world-honored one, that this man could bring himself to abandon a land of purity and willingly come to this place with all its wrath and injury. Yeah, that's the nub of it, isn't it? This world of wrath and injury. But as the Sutra reveals, this world of wrath and injury is a world in which, if bodhisattvas so choose, the work on oneself done here can be 100 or 1,000 times more efficacious than the work that bodhisattvas may do on wonderful worlds, where, as we know from fragrance accumulated to that Buddha, where the teaching can be done with perfumes. All that bodhisattvas in that world need to do is sit down beneath a fragrant tree, enter profound samadhi, and the practice realization is completed in this way. No effort whatsoever. Yet on this world, with all its difficulties, the Buddhas must use harsh language. They must say, no, not good enough. No, keep working at it. All the things that through our years of practice we had to face. Why? Why do bodhisattvas have to get born in this world of wrath and injury, this saha world? Saha, the Sanskrit word meaning tolerable or bearable. There's so many difficulties that make this world just bearable, just tolerable. Again, the secret revealed by the Vimalakirti Sutra is that in this world of difficulties, of change, of hardship, of suffering, all that flesh is heir to, the potential to evolve spiritually is much greater than on worlds where things are really easygoing and everything falls into your lap. Vimalakirti said to Shariputra, what is your opinion? When the light of the sun shines forth, does it mix with the darkness? No, replied Shariputra. When the light of the sun shines forth, all darkness at once ceases to exist. That's true, isn't it? When the light shines, then things aren't dark. They're not mixed, they're just not dark anymore. Vimalakirti said, and the sun, why does it visit this continent of Jambudvipa, Rose Apple Land, which could be this planet, this continent of India? No one's can't pin down exactly, but Jambudvipa means Rose Apple Land. That's a wonderful name, isn't it? This Rose Apple Land. It is a world of fragrance after all, when you think of that world of the Buddha fragrance accumulated. And all those bodhisattvas who came to Vimalakirti's little room. Yet Rose Apple Land is not without its beauties. Because it wishes to use its brightness to drive the darkness away, replied Shariputra. Vimalakirti said, the bodhisattva is like this. Though he is born in an impure land, that is a world with difficulties, with challenges, with issues, all the things that we each know in our own form. There is no one without difficulty or issues on this planet Earth, this Saha world. Even the Dalai Lama has the great tragedy and difficulty of China and its terribly brutal treatment of Tibetans and Tibetan Buddhism, and of the Panchen Lama, who's been locked up since childhood or disappeared. Though he is born in an impure Buddha land, he does this so he can convert living beings. Now, convert doesn't mean, hey, I'm going to make you a Buddhist. Let me knock on your door and give you a pamphlet. That's not what it means. It means help people in any way you can to realize themselves, to evolve further as human beings, to be able to express decency, kindness, compassion, the wisdom of non-duality, whatever name you call it. This is the work of bodhisattvas. He does not mix with or share its stupidity and darkness, merely wipes out the darkness of earthly desires that besets living beings. At that time, the members of the great assembly were filled with longing, desiring to see the wonderful joy world, that is, the world of Akshobya Buddha, where Vimalakirti, it now turns out, has actually come from to be born into this Saha world of difficulties. Yes, they wanted to see wonderful joy world, and the thus come one, the Buddha, immovable, Akshobya Buddha, and his host of bodhisattvas and voice hearers. The Buddha knew what all the members of the assembly were thinking, and he said to Vimalakirti, "Good man, you must make the land wonderful joy, and the thus come one immovable, and his host of bodhisattvas and voice hearers visible to the members of this assembly. They all long to see them." I remember Roshi Kapleau speaking about practice. He said, it's not just an effort of will. It comes from a longing, a yearning. It's heartfelt. We too yearn to see the world of wonderful joy. Read the Three Pillars. In it, Yamada Roshi, who was then a businessman, Yamada, says at the end of his little diary entry about his enlightenment experience, he had just, talked with Yasutani Roshi and heard about Philip Kapleau having come to Japan to attain enlightenment. And he said, tell him, vow to attain enlightenment. Not just if it takes a week, because that was Philip Kapleau's question. Can I get enlightenment in a week of sesshin? He said, vow, tell that American to vow to attain enlightenment, though it take not just a week, but years, eons, kalpas, the boundless, immeasurable future. It's worth it. And Philip Kapleau later on, his experience says, so profoundly grateful to know this joy like no other. So grateful to have a human body, be able to experience this joy like no other. That world of wonderful joy, we all yearn to see it. And now Vimalakirti thought to himself, without rising from my seat, right where I am, just as I am, not when I'm better in the future, right where I am, without rising from my seat, he says, I shall take this country, wonderful joy, with its iron-encircling mountains and rivers, its valleys, waterways, great seas, fountains, its Sumeru, mountain at the core, and its other mountains, along with its sun, moon, stars, the palaces of the heavenly beings, dragons, spirits, dragons might be Nagas, Brahmas and Indras, the gods, as well as the hosts of bodhisattvas and voice-hearers, its cities, villages, men and women, old and young, along with the Buddha, immovable Akshobya, and the Bodhi trees and wonderful lotus blossoms that are able to carry out the Buddha's work in the 10 directions, the jeweled staircases that extend from the continent of Jambudvipa all the way up to the Trayastrimsha heaven, the jeweled stairways by which the heavenly beings may descend and all pay reverence to the thus come one immovable Akshobya. So interesting to think of, what was that? Jacob had a dream in the desert. He saw a staircase with angels ascending and descending. Who knows? Who knows? Jeweled staircases by which the heavenly beings may descend and all pay reverence to the Buddha, Akshobya, and listen to and receive his sutra teachings, and the inhabitants of Jambudvipa may also ascend these stairways to the Triyastrimsha heaven and visit its heavenly beings, for the world, wonderful joy, is replete with immeasurable merits, such as these, extending upward to the Akanistha heaven and downward to its watery base. And all this, says Vimalakirti, I shall lift from its place and take it in my right hand, as though removing it from a potter's wheel, and bring it here to this world, like some flower garland I am holding, and show it to all these beings. Whoa! Without moving from my seat, I'll lift up that whole world of wonderful joy, with all its beings, with its sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, Buddhas, bodhisattvas, nagas, gods, men, women, and bring it right here. Now this is the same metaphor that was used earlier in the sutra, where all those great bodhisattvas from the world fragrance accumulated, and all the beings of the city of Vaisali, and all the bodhisattvas and disciples showed up in Vimalakirti's little 10-foot square room. And all those immense lion thrones, they all fit and didn't impede on one another at all. This is a vision of Dharmakaya. Bottomless, groundless, everything fits. Nothing impedes anything else. Each thing can still be completely itself. Of course, early on in our curriculum, we have a wonderful koan to examine. From where you are, stop the sound of that distant bell. This language of the Vimalakirti Sutra is pure Zen. There it is, 100 AD. Not later on in China, not thousands of years later in Japan, or 1,000 years later in Japan. So, having had this thought, he entered Samadhi, and manifesting his transcendental powers, lifted the wonderful joy world out of its place with its right hand and set it down on the ground in this world. Whoa. The host of bodhisattvas and voice-hearers and the various heavenly and human beings in that world who had acquired transcendental knowledge, that is, prajna, paramita, wisdom, non-dual awareness, all cried out together, saying, "Look, World-honored one. They're speaking to Akshobya Buddha, the Buddha of their world. Someone is making off with us. Save and protect us, we beg of you. This sounds a lot like a Dr. Seuss book, Horton Hears a Who. If you know that book, you will see how much like the Vimalakirti Sutra it really is. If you don't know it, I recommend checking it out. Picking up the whole universe of wonderful joy. And those with insight cried out, "Help! Help! Save us! We beg of you!" But the Buddha immovable, Akshobya Buddha, said, "This is not my doing. This is the work of Vimalakirti's supernatural powers." And the rest of the beings in that world who had not yet acquired transcendental knowledge did not even realize or know where they had gotten to. I guess there's something to be said for ignorance after all. Those who didn't have transcendental knowledge were never worried about it, had no anxiety whatsoever. Ignorance might be bliss in this case. But although the wonderful joy world, get this, have been placed on the ground in this world, wonderful joy world right here, it had not increased or decreased in size, and this world likewise had in no way become cramped or narrow, but was no different from what it had always been. In other words, nothing in its truest nature, wonderful joy. Nothing impedes anything else or anyone else. Each thing has its place. Each thing has its own Buddha world. Each thing has its own place to come forward from without impeding anyone or anything else. If we can only realize this, what a wonderful world it would truly be. When we don't see it and don't realize it, we act as if you're impeding me, and I may have to fight you for it. Alas. Then Shakyamuni Buddha addressed his great assembly, saying, "Do you see the wonderful joy world? The thus come one immovable, and the splendid adornments of his land, the purity of the practices carried out by his bodhisattvas, the impeccable cleanness of his major disciples?" All replied, "Yes, we have seen them." The Buddha said, if bodhisattvas wish to acquire a Buddha land as pure and spotless as this, they should study the way practiced by the thus come one immovable. When this wonderful joy country appeared in the Saha world, that is, our world, our tolerable, bearable world, wonderful joy suddenly appeared here. 14 nayutas of people set their minds on attaining Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, all desiring to be born in the Buddha land. Wonderful joy! Shakyamuni thereupon gave them a prophecy, saying, "You will be born in that land." What a wonderful prophecy. You will be born in that land. There's a story much, much older from the Mahabharata of the king Yudhishthira, the true king, and his brothers, the Pandavas, who have been tricked out of their kingdom, cheated at dice. They have to wander in the forest alone. One day they go down to the river. All but Yudhishthira are put into a death-like sleep. Yudhishthira, if he answers 3 questions posed by the river, then his brothers will awake. If he fails, he himself will fall into a death-like sleep. We're all in a death-like sleep, aren't we? Well, Yudhishthira answers correctly. The last question, the final one, asked by the river is, what's inevitable? We can think of some pretty harsh things that are inevitable. But Yudhishthira, the true king, this is thousands and thousands of years old, Mahabharata, great story, answers to the question as to what's inevitable. He says, happiness. It's the correct answer. His brothers wake from their death-like sleep. He doesn't fall into a death-like sleep. This is very much like Shakyamuni Buddha's prophecy. You will be born in that land of wonderful joy. Eventually, everyone gets born in that world of wonderful joy. Of course, it may take a long time. We have to keep going, one step after another, endless path. Then the wonderful joy world, having finished bestowing enrichment and benefit upon this world, returned to its original place. All the members of the assembly saw it do so. What is its original place? There is a koan in our curriculum. Actually, it's case number 42 in Mumonkan, or Wumenkwan, gateless barrier. It goes like this. Manjushri and the young woman in Samadhi. The case. Once Manjushri went to a place where many Buddhas had assembled with the world-honored one. When he arrived, all the Buddhas had returned to their original dwelling place. Only a young woman remained, seated in Samadhi near the Buddha's seat. We won't go further into the case. It's rather lengthy, very Indian, very much like a sutra, actually, but used by Zen teachers for a specific point or set of points. The question here is, what's the original dwelling place? Where did they go? This is exactly what's being said right here. Same exact language in the Vimalakirti Sutra. It says, when they'd finished bestowing enrichment of benefit upon this world, the wonderful joy world returned to its original place. All the members of the assembly saw it do so. This too could be a koan. It's so interesting to see how Zen interacts with the Vimalakirti Sutra so perfectly. Then the Buddha addressed Shariputra saying, "Did you see this wonderful joy world and the Buddha immovable?" Did you see the wonderful joy world and the Buddha immovable? Yes, I saw them, world-honored one, and I beg you to enable all living beings to acquire a clean and pure land like that of the Buddha immovable, and to gain transcendental powers like those of Vimalakirti. World-honored one, I and the others have happily acquired excellent benefits being able to see this person and to approach and make offerings to him. And other living beings, either now, while the Buddha is here, or after he has passed away, if they hear this sutra, will acquire excellent benefits as well. And how much more so if, having heard it, they believe and understand it, accept and uphold it, read and recite it, expound it to others, and practice it as the Dharma directs. One who holds this sutra in hand has thereby acquired the storehouse of the jewels of the Dharma. If one reads and recites it, understands and expounds it, and practices it as the Dharma directs, the Buddhas will guard and keep in mind that person. And if there are those who give alms to such a person, let it be known that this is giving alms to the Buddha. If there are those who copy and preserve these sutra scrolls, let it be known that the thus come one will visit their rooms. And if there are those who, hearing the sutra, can respond with appropriate joy, those persons will forthwith acquire comprehensive wisdom. If there are those who believe and understand this sutra, even just one 4-line verse of it, and can expound it to others, let it be known that such persons will forthwith receive a prophecy of the attainment of Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi. This is where the chapter ends, but we can go on a bit since we have some time. We're actually coming towards the end of the sutra. We're at chapter 13. There are only 14 chapters. So let's go on a bit. The offering of the Dharma. At that time, Shakra Devanam, that is Indra, king of the gods, spoke up from the great assembly, addressing the Buddha in these words: World-honored one, though I have heard hundreds and thousands of sutras from the Buddha and Manjushri, I have never heard one with such astounding freedom of action, transcendental powers, an unfailing grasp of the true reality. According to my understanding of what the Buddha has just said, if there are living beings who hear this sutra on the Dharma, believe and understand it, accept and uphold it, read and recite it, then they will surely and without doubt acquire the Dharma. And how much more so if they practice it, as the Dharma directs. Such persons will shut off all evil paths of existence and open the gates to all good ones. They will be constantly guarded and kept in mind by the Buddhas, will refute the non-Buddhist teachings, overcome Mara and his animosity, cultivate and practice Bodhi, and rest secure in the place of practice, following in the way trod by the thus come one, world-honored one. If there are persons who accept and uphold, read and recite the sutra and practice it as the Dharma directs, then I, remember this is King of the Gods speaking, and my followers will offer alms to them and serve them. And if there is a place among the villages or towns, the mountain forests or the broad plain, where this sutra exists, then I and my followers will go there together to listen to and accept the Dharma. And those who do not yet believe in it, I will lead to belief. And to those who already believe, I will be a guardian. The Buddha said, excellent. Excellent, Heavenly Lord. It is just as you have said, and I will assist you in your joyful task. This sutra expounds in comprehensive manner the Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi of the Buddhas, the past, future, and present, which is beyond comprehension. Very important point. We don't understand this with our intellect. It can never be turned into a concept. We understand it through practice, beyond comprehension, beyond all those little devices we've used to control our world to one degree or another. We let it all go, beyond comprehension. What a wonderful thing. Therefore, Heavenly Lord, if good men and good women accept, uphold, read, recite, and make offerings to this sutra, they're making offering to the Buddhas of past, future, and present. Heavenly Lord, suppose this 1,000,000,000-fold world were as full of thus come ones, that is, of Buddhas, as it is of sugarcane, bamboo. Thus come ones in this sense would mean fully realized, fully awakened, beings at the level of a Shakyamuni. It's opened up all the, every wisdom, every bit of compassion possible for the mind, the nature of the universe, actually. Imagine that this world were as full of fully realized Buddhas as it is of sugarcane, bamboo, reeds, hemp plants, or forest trees. If there were good men or good women who for the space of a kalpa, or less than a kalpa, would revere and honor, praise, and make offerings to them and provide for their well-being, and if after those Buddhas had passed away, these persons built towers adorned with the 7 treasures to house the relics from each Buddha body, towers so broad they covered the 4 continents, and so high they reached to the Brahma heaven, their central pole richly decorated, and if these persons made offerings of all kinds of flowers, incense, necklaces, flags, pennants, and music, all of the most refined and wonderful kind, and did this for the space of a kalpa, or less than a kalpa. Heavenly Lord, what is your opinion? Would these persons have thereby planted the seeds of many blessings? Shakra Devanam replied, of many blessings indeed, world-honored one. If I were to spend 100,000 million kalpas, I could never finish describing all their blessings and merits. The Buddha said to the Heavenly Lord, you should understand that if there are good men and good women who, on hearing this sutra on the emancipation beyond comprehension, the emancipation beyond comprehension, never think you can turn it into some small concept that you can put in your pocket and carry around. Beyond comprehension, this very moment, the color of the flowers on the altar, the movement of the flame from the candle, the feel of pain in my knees, the sound of rain on the skylight glass, the light coming off the altar lights. Beyond comprehension. My thinking is beyond comprehension. My seeing is beyond comprehension. My hearing is beyond comprehension. And yet, I do these miraculous things beyond comprehension every moment of every day. Wonderful joy world. How far away is it? Yeah, so I could never finish describing it, says Shakradevanam. Then the Buddha says, you should understand that if there are good men and good women who, on hearing this sutra on the emancipation beyond comprehension, believe, understand, accept, uphold, read, recite, and practice it, their blessings will be even greater than those of such persons who make all those fantastic offerings for a kalpa to all the Buddhas. Really? That's what the Buddha says. Why? Because the Bodhi of the Buddhas is all born from this sutra. We have to understand, what is this sutra? The Bodhi of the Buddhas is all born from this sutra, beyond comprehension. That sutra. The marks of Bodhi are beyond limit or measure, and for that reason, their blessings are immeasurable. The Buddha then said to the Heavenly Lord, a countless asamkhya number of kalpas in the past, there appeared, get this, these aren't just words, listen, a countless asamkhya, that's more than millions of kalpas in the past, there appeared in the world, that is, in this world, so far in the past that it's unimaginable, a Buddha named Medicine King. Thus come one, worthy of offerings, of right and universal knowledge, perfect clarity and conduct, well gone, that is gone, entirely gone. Understanding the world, unexcelled, worthy, trainer of people, teacher of heavenly and human beings, Buddha, world-honored one. His world was called Great Adornment, and his kalpa was called Adornment. This Buddha had a lifespan of 20 small kalpas. His voice-hearer monks numbered 36 million nayutas, and his bodhisattva monks 12 million. Heavenly Lord, at that time there was a wheel-turning sage king named Jeweled Parasol, who possessed all the 7 treasures and ruled over the 4 continents of the world. This king had 1,000 sons, upright, valiant, capable of overpowering their enemies. At that time Jeweled Parasol came with his followers to make offerings to the thus come one Medicine King, providing him with all he needed for his well-being. He did this for 5 whole kalpas. And when the 5 kalpas were over, he said to his sons, you too should make offerings to the Buddha with the same deeply searching mind as I have shown. Isn't that interesting? Not just to make offerings, but to make offerings with a deeply searching mind. Once again, Zen so intersects with the Vimalakirti Sutra. A deeply searching mind. This is the essence of our offering. This is what we can bring to all beings. The presence of our own deeply searching mind. When we have a deeply searching mind, we get out of the way. We'll let all beings walk right in. This is a great gift, ultimately, not just to ourselves. So, the 1,000 sons, obeying their father's command, proceeded to make offerings to the thus come one medicine king for another 5 full kalpas, providing him with everything needed for his well-being. One of the king's sons, named Moon Parasol, sat all alone, thinking to himself, isn't there some offering that is better than these? Then, through the Buddha's supernatural power, a heavenly being appeared in the sky and said, good man, the offering of the Dharma is the finest of all offerings. The son asked, what is the offering of the Dharma? The heavenly being replied, you should go and ask the medicine king thus come one. He will explain to you in detail the offering of the Dharma. At once the Prince Moon Parasol went to call on the thus come one medicine king. After bowing his head in obeisance at the Buddha's feet, he retired to one side and addressed the Buddha, saying, world-honored one, among all offerings, the offering of the Dharma is the finest. But what is the offering of the Dharma? And we'll stop there for next time. We'll take up the offering of the Dharma and the final chapter of the wondrous, beyond comprehension wondrous, Vimalakirti Sutra, also known as the Sutra Beyond Comprehension. The final chapter is entrustment. So we'll take that up next time, and now we will recite our Bodhisattva vows for the benefit of all beings.